Fine.
Okay, I will call this regular board meeting of the Regional Service Commission to order at 6:00 p.m. We have a quorum, there are no visitors here. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Hearing none, I'd like to move on to adoption of the agenda, but I have a motion to add under new business, and that would be to update the wording of the regional recreation master plan. We have a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll make the motion to accept the agenda with the amendment.
Thank you. We have a motion and second, question? All those in favor? Motion carried. Adoption of the minutes of the board meeting of September 12th, and those are in the package.
I'll make a motion to accept the amendment to the September 12th, 2024 meeting. Go ahead.
We're gonna arm wrestle with somebody.
I haven't voted on it, so there's that one.
Question on the adoption of the minutes? All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. Under new business, we have a request for a motion to add Mike Thompson to the Economic Development Committee.
I'll make a motion to add Blake Thompson to the economic development committee.
Motion, do we have a seconder? Seconded?
Just to Blake Thompson is one of my counselors. Yeah, he's quite interested in economic development, so I see yes, we have a spot on community. So
Perfect. Yeah. Any other question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. Discussion, the 2025 strategic planning. Are you taking that, I hope?
I can start off. I've discussed with several of you, I don't know if I discussed with everybody completely. But our strategic plan that we currently have is not, well, we're not following it completely. And the process that we went through to get to this strategic plan was the one that was dictated by the province. We had a consultant which they paid for. The process, I feel, was the timeline was rushed. It was chaotic. It divided up the board at the time. And so by the time it came together as a strategic plan, the board had not been involved as a whole with the whole plan. Previously, when we did a strategic plan, we did it together as a board. It was a shorter process, but it was because you are the directors of this organization that should be owned and created by the directors of the organization. And that's what we had previously. So my thought was that we really need to revisit our strategic plan early in 2025. And I mean like February probably. And it would be nobody but this board. And I can guide through the process of what it takes to get a strategic plan done, but it doesn't have to be 800 pages long, and it doesn't have to be what we ended up with a couple of years ago. And I feel like if this board goes through this as a whole and we come out the other end, then this board will have ownership of that strategic plan in its entirety. And be a lot more comfortable with adopting it, because I felt like when you adopted the last plan, it was like there was a gun to your head to do it, because if we didn't adopt it, we weren't going to get funded. And I don't think I have any disagreement on that. So I feel like we should revisit this and make it truly what it should have been in the first place. And I will need it to set the direction for the organization in more ways than just specific things that we're doing, but the actual goals and how we achieve those goals. Are we a minimalist organization? Are we going to achieve loftier goals in the future that are, so there's some discussion around that, the direction of where this board is going, where this organization is going. It needs to remain flexible enough because, as Jim and I discussed earlier today, I really feel like they're not done with local governance reform, especially now that we have a new government. I'm assuming there's going to be more changes coming. There's been a lot of frustration around the province with the process of some of the things that have happened, the regional services versus the actual municipal line item services. And that's echoed right around the province. So I feel like there's going to be more changes coming. So we need to remain adaptable to whatever those changes might be as well. And that needs to be reflected in this plan as well. So there's a variety of things. So that's the kind of the kicker of the discussion. You guys can take it from there, but that's what I feel we should do. And I think we should talk about what's going to happen, you know, towards the end of this year and then the first part of next year, so that we know what to expect. So I know what I need to plan for.
Good. Do you need a motion for that, or you just?
No, this is a discussion point.
Yep. I agree with you.
So we had this conversation when you were over the budget presentation on the island. I think that's when we talked about it.
Yeah.
And I think you characterized the adoption of the strategic plan pretty well. And I remember having those conversations, like we've got to do it because we need the plan to make the budget to get the funding. And there really wasn't a lot of time to go through.
Yeah.
And the fact that we were divided up into separate committees on each pillar, it really isn't. We've got silos of strategic plans, but I'm not sure how well they all blend together as a whole. And maybe that's where we have a conversation around, do we focus on all of the pillars? Is there one that we really want to focus on and do little pieces? I think it's a good conversation to have a couple of years in that we've got to do that.
And that was not my primary, I guess, but one of my primary reasons for voting no against it was, and I think I said that in the meeting at the time, that I felt that I was being put in a corner and the gun to my head and having to vote on it because of funding and because of everything, and I just couldn't vote on it based on that, but I just felt wrong. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully, you know, in February, I didn't go earlier than I think the sooner we have the discussion and try to clear almost clear the air, but get it
Refocus.
on the table, I think it's a good idea.
Sounds good.
Okay. So, I'm just going to take this opportunity while we're on this discussion point. So the rest of this year, I mean, after this and after the budget vote next Tuesday, we've got November. In December, we don't really do a lot because it's hard to do stuff in December for everybody that gets involved with everything. So in November, Charlene, by the way, would have been here tonight, except that she actually had she's got another engagement as a chamber congressman tonight that she's attending, but she wants to come at some point in November, and that could be the committee meeting might be the place for that, where we had the other services here last time. I will give some updates as I've indicated in our agenda tonight on that, but it'd be good to get the feedback from all of those services. And I am putting together an update, kind of a year-end wrap-up of all of the stuff that we've heard from all of the services, including solid waste and planning and everything. It might be in a different type of format, I'm not sure yet. But I will have one together by the end of this year. That it'll be available for the public as well, so they can understand. Because one of the things that I heard at council meetings was that they didn't quite understand what we're doing or who we are. It's, you know, point is not lost. I mean, it's hard to communicate absolutely everything we do because we just do a lot of things that don't seem to make a lot of sense to those outside. And I forget that sometimes because I'm immersed in this every day. But it was good to hear from all of your counselors about that kind of stuff. And I could see that. So there will be a communication by the end of the year. And then we can take all the feedback that you got from councils, and all that kind of stuff as we go into our strategic planning. And we can really get a good feel of where we need to go, where we feel comfortable with. So the other piece of that is this, your next motion. Actually, I'm going to leave that discussion to that one. Yeah, so that's what I. So we'll do planning in November about the actual schedule of how things are going to go. You guys can give it some thought when you want to do certain things in 2025, like the strategic plan. Do we get that out of the way right in January? Do we, February? Those are things we don't have to answer tonight, but we need to figure out probably next month.
I'm almost wondering on that, if it would make sense to do it over two, like, committee of the whole meetings, like have the first conversation in January and then finalize, it would be ready to finalize later.
I'm almost thinking that this is going to be like a day-long Saturday kind of thing.
Okay. Whole day off the line, okay?
I don't think we can fit it into the committee.
I would probably agree with that. I think 2 hours would be very rushed.
And if we can't complete it in a single day, that's okay. Hey, let's not rush it.
I was just gonna say, when I said Saturday, we said, well, we're not gonna be able to get it in, and that's what we don't want. We don't want to be coming back to a committee the whole and go on 2-3 hours and just say, well, this is it, we gotta do it again, and like that. It's
Right.
the purpose.
It's ready when it's ready. I think if we can agree to that principle, then, we'll have a good result.
Sounds good. So next month, our committee meeting in November, we'll talk and try to lay out a plan, like a first scheduled meeting, so that's what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a comment, thank you very much for going to our councils and taking the time to, I think the council respected that a lot, so. Yeah.
I'm glad they got something out of it, and I think it's important for them to hear a little bit more about what's happening here, because when they don't hear anything, and then they get suspicious.
Well, yeah.
And then I hit them with an $800,000 bill.
Yeah, that goes.
So it's absolutely no problem to do that. I don't mind that one bit.
No, I can say, on my side of it, I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, it was nice to let them hear from someone besides me.
Yeah, that's why I love it.
Great. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you share the information, having another voice saying it is a good thing.
And you did that job.
It does it much better though.
All right, so we have a strategic plan or a plan for a strategic plan when going into next year. All right, so then the next thing was the addition, which is I'm looking for a motion to amend the regional. Should put my glasses on before I started this. So a motion to update the recreation master plan wording. And so the motion would be it resolved that the regional recreation master plan policy RNP 1-T 2023, section 6.1 be updated. The wording, the commission and its members shall charge 2 cents per $100 of residential property assessment to all municipalities and the rural district through the cooperative and regional planning budget shall be changed to the commission and its members shall charge 2 cents per $100 of property assessment to all municipalities in the rural district.
I'll look at that. Sam, do you want me to read all that?
I should have let you read it in the first place.
I'd like to have it approved.
With all the people.
Do we have a seconder for the motion?
We have that one.
This was a new one.
Can I read it very quick?
You absolutely can.
Aaron seconded.
Is it already moved and seconded in discussion?
Good discussion.
So this is changing the wording, so it's back I guess to make it. To make it right,
It realigns with where we were with the original.
so, but we're already doing what we're doing, so I don't know the bearing of the.
No, I don't think it's trying to
We
be.
vote it down or
Because I
no.
think I missed what you guys
I
voted.
don't think it will, but I'm looking at my vote, my vote's no, in the motion, what does it? I would only be doing it on principle, I guess, because we already have a document in place, so if this is. Not changing, I don't know if I'm getting across. Right. So if I vote no, and this, or we'll just hypothetically say it's voted and this motion's voted down. What changes?
Nothing.
So by
Where
accepting it,
we're
what
at.
changes?
We're accepting the new one plus the new wording.
There's two things that change, is the changing from residential assessment to assessment. And there's another piece in there that said that we collected through the cooperative and regional budget, which we have been, that's actually accurate. But that's not what we're doing going forward, because it has its own budget. So I just struck that part.
Any other questions?
So I'll just comment, at the end of the day, it's still gonna be the same figure it would have been yesterday. That makes like nothing changed, just the wording to make it accurate. That's good. Quick housekeeping, I would say.
So you need a second? Oh, where is it? Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll third.
All those in favor? Contrary minded?
Well-
We passed.
Motion's carried.
Motion's carried. Okay, it's a simple motion. Okay, committee and staff reports. Economic development update. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Just a little.
Oh, there might be more than the wording that he's not liking.
Yeah, no, that's why, never mind. Yes. Keep the bus part, keep going, we're good. Yeah. I'm just.
Okay, I think we're gonna move on to economic development.
I'm making you think like this tonight.
Video, Joe Biden on there,
Okay, so as I said, Charlene, it seems her regrets, she was double booked, she was booked at the other event tonight, so I'm going to report on. There was an economic development advisory committee meeting on October 9th. And they reviewed the progress from June, it was like a quarter meeting, so June to September. And they also reviewed the work plans. Keep in mind, these work plans, a lot of it is followed by the obligations we have for the federal money, so there's a big piece of it that is that. And the oh yeah, she gave an update on the community promotional funding initiative, that's Department of Health. So that's the funding that they've been giving us. There is there are videos being produced right now. In fact, they've done the shooting. I think they did some on Grand Man, they did some in either, I'm sure the research trial, they did some down this way. And now that they have all the law footage, they can edit and piece this together into a whole bunch of different things. They hired professional actors. I haven't seen the actual footage yet, but I'm told it's as good as it gets, kind of thing. Which is where we need it to be in terms of quality. Some of the activities happening in economic development, you will see there is a youth forum or youth, what's it called, youth. We did the same thing last year. Forum, maybe. Yeah, it's at the Algonquin, and that's on October 31st on Halloween. Yeah. And then the week after that, there's a job fair at Paris Lawn Center as well. This one's fairly large too. So those things were set up and that's up and running. Youth Expo, sorry, that was the word I was looking for. We just read the paper. So we did this last year, it was quite a success. They had buses and they brought in kids from the entire region. For that, it was an all-day event, it was well received. There's a really panel of entrepreneurs and some career. It's not all about what education path you're going to take, but sometimes it's about different types of careers and a lot of trades. Representation there as well, which is, we all know is a shortage, so. It worked well last year, so I'm hoping for good things again this year. So other. In her last meeting, they discussed with the committee the regional development priorities. And it was an update on some things that are happening. There is a bi-weekly job list that goes out online. I don't know if any of you have seen that and shared that. We've done some analysis on housing, and so the round 2 of the Housing Accelerator Fund applications they've been submitted. I don't know how they result that yet, but what I'm understanding is that they're going to be looking at places that didn't get it last time, so that would be us. That would be everybody in the region. So we'll see where that lands. But that's been done. That was a part of economic development. I don't have the report yet, but there has been a scan on transportation for the region, all the transportation services and gaps. So the whole point of having that done is so that we have a third-party gap analysis when we go to seek funding for other things. So for instance, if we're successful with our other capital grant, then this might give us leverage to talk about operational funding. And talk about internet and cellular coverage. And there's another piece that I was going to try again with our new government. I didn't get anywhere with the last one, but we got some significant gaps in cell coverage in the region. It is an economic barrier. It's also a safety issue. It's a barrier to a lot of things. So I'm going to open that door up again.
We had talked about the landfill, and then somewhere there's a Portobello or Grand Manan, like, because there's a dead spot there. The northern part of Grand Manan, the southern part of Campobello.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
We both recovered and just turned them back up.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, they turned them down because the Americans complaining they're ours, they turned them down because
Yes.
it's the road charges, but it's the other way around. Because see, we're our own country, they shouldn't be able to help control.
We turned the power down first.
Yeah, I think you'll find that that it talked to the people today, I had pretty good 5G service for some reason home. We never ever did have 5G, but for some reason they did.
At the landfill is right in the middle of that great big dead zone.
Yeah.
And it's also the high point of that great big dead zone. And I've made the offer that you can put the tower here for free. We have lots of property that we're never going to use up there by the number 3 island. And that's where our MLA was taking us. I'm going to have to chase down a couple of things, but I've learned since that there is actually a federal fund for this, for the infrastructure to do this.
And it's also one of the MLA, it should be federal.
Because the Department of Finance will finance the capital portion where there's no business case. Apparently, there's no business case right there, which I guess I can see, but anyway, we're not letting it go.
I almost disagree with that. The safety portion is your business case. That should trump everything.
Public safety part.
There's also the McKinney Institute that's supposed to be doing something with rural digital communication. That's another
So they-
organization involved.
So the Canada Institute contacted me because they wanted to do a scan of, it wasn't that particular, but it was I think it was broadband access. And they wanted to speak to this board, whether or not you want to do that or not. I mean, the McKenna Institute is a UMD think tank kind of thing. I don't know if they can actually do anything other than a
Was it, they had $1 million.
study. They can't affect, policy or legislation. It's a UNV thing, so. But if you're interested, they would certainly, of course, I haven't heard from them for a couple months now, so I don't know where they are. And in news, so there was some newcomers that were recruited for healthcare recently. There was employers that were involved, outside of healthcare as well. So we do, newcomer settlement support as part of economic development. And then their regional job fair, community event. That's resume writing, interviews, regional transportation. The welcome package is done or almost done. What she's gonna do is, once that's completed, then she's gonna send it to me for input. And I'll get it to, and I can send it to you guys if you wanna, have any feedback on what that welcome package looks like. So this is for people who move here, so they understand where to go, what to do, how to do things. It's important for retention. The housing starts. I think she talked about overall are down a little bit, but if you look later on in my CEO report, you'll see that we're about even for the last year. So I think what's happened is the building permits anyway have plateaued. Still very busy, still very strong, but it's not increasing year over year. It's kind of, we're right exactly where we were from last year. She is working on the Shop Local campaign. So that's going to be soon, because we thought there is Christmas. And there's various other. And she's got stuff on the go all the time. Charlene, for those of you that don't know, she was out on medical for a couple of months, so she's kind of catching back up. She is not back in the office. I won't go through the minutia of the other documents that I sent out. I sent out her. There's two documents here. So one is a work plan that needs to be approved by Work at MB for that funding, and that's what one of these items. And the other one is just the overall sort of metrics of where we are, measures of where we are. Any questions that I can try to answer? Feel free.
Any questions or comments?
There's a lot going on.
I'm hearing minutes, so
I will say that, now that she's back and stuff, you need her to come to meet with either your groups or your council or things like that, and you know, she can do that as well. And I think it'd be good in light of what the three of you are doing, maybe to talk. And I mentioned this to a couple of folks, that if you are looking at your local economic development business, we're there for support and help and to, you know, to assist in any way we can. We do regularly meet with Synergy, which is, you know, for development out of Funny Shores. At least that's a monthly check-in at least. And then any certain things that go up. But you know, we're available for that kind of support as well. There's a lot of small business support that's now available through this contract that we got, especially when it comes to HR. So small businesses throughout the region, if somebody comes to you and they're having some kind of an issue, contact us. It may fall under the contract, it probably does, and if it's more extensive than that, we can certainly advise them on where to go.
that's good. No questions? Okay, Ken, are you hearing us? You doing okay? Okay.
Yeah, I'm hearing you fine, thanks.
Oh, and I did send out that one pager, and that's just if you want to pass that around or post that or do anything with that, it's just something that was handed to us from the Department of Health. Given to Charlene, and so thought you guys should have it.
Did you get an email? Did we get that email? Okay, but
So moving on to your report.
My report's mostly graphical this month. But I do want to talk about a couple of things that, so. When we're talking about the waste, you can see the orange lines in that graph is this year. And blue would be last year, and green was the year before, so you can definitely see the trend of where we are. So year to date. We're at 43,000 tons. 2 years ago, we were at 51 and change. So there's definitely a decrease overall. And some of that is due to the loss, well, a large part of that is due to our loss of our American customer. But some of it is actually just due to the fact that we're just getting less garbage overall. And nobody's actually come out and said this, but it's really kind of an economic indicator. It's like a leading economic indicator. If you get less waste, that means people buying less stuff. So it's just something to keep an eye on, but with the changes that we've made, well, you've seen the budget proposed for 25, we should be fine. You know, we certainly slimmed down the organization, and we're going to be closing down Saturdays. We did this last year in the winter. And it was just not worthwhile to keep going on Saturdays in the winter time last year, so it's a no-brainer to do it again this year. And what we're contemplating for next year, maybe this comes up during our strategic planning, is that next year during the summertime, maybe we don't open every Saturday, but maybe what we do instead is have maybe once a month we have a full Saturday, because we were only open Saturday nights, but I have a full Saturday where we concentrate on different things like household hazardous waste or things like that. We promote it, and so we get a lot more people coming out. Maybe it's leaf and brush stuff in the spring, and maybe it's you know, at different times when people are opening pools, that's a good time to do household hazardous waste. So there may be different themes like that, and kind of do that maybe once a month. We can talk about this again next year, how we want to handle that. But I think I think we'll get more bang for our buck.
When do you plan on closing Saturday? Or date?
Next week.
Next week.
November.
Yes, this is the last Saturday. And you're open by the 8 to 12, or is it?
8 to 12.
So you're closing 1st of November on Saturdays, reopening April, May?
That's what we'll have to talk
We'll
about.
have to discuss that.
Yeah.
But I was just trying to see how far ahead we were looking. Yeah.
So those watching on TV right now, this is the last Saturday, so get your stuff together. There's a 3 hours.
I think I might know the answer to that, but I just should ask. What if you get the American waste next week?
What if we get it?
Yeah. So that extra revenue comes in, what do you do with the revenue? I guess.
It ends up as a surplus.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Or it could be transferred to a reserve fund, right?
Yeah, well, it'll be a surplus until we make the decision to transfer to reserve, usually towards the end of the year. Which is what we used to do. But because there's no big plans for construction or anything, I don't actually make any changes. It doesn't take more people to do what we're doing.
Yes.
Oh, and on that, and on the American stuff, I'm doing a tour over there next week. I'm going down to see American first, but then Mike and I are both going to sign some contracts and things like that. Get that locked down as much as we can. They want the same things we do, so the only change that they did make, the only ask that they did make was to go to a 5-year and then a 5-year renewal, which is fine, same thing. And so moving on to planning activity, as I already alluded to, I've included a year-over-year comparison. I know it's hard to read because those graphs get real small, but we're almost neck and neck. Year-over-year in terms of building and demolition permits. And every other permit's very similar. We had more subdivision applications last year than we do this year. It's still there's still a significant amount of subdivision applications, but we had more last year, so I don't know if that indicates that more people are. Last year, we're dividing up land to sell off lots to do more development and that's slowing down. I'm not sure. I don't know if there's a statistically significant difference. It's well, it's 109 versus 95, so it's not huge, but it's 14. Less subdivision application. That's really the only difference. Everything else is roughly the same. And I gave a breakdown of the where the applications are coming from, and there's no surprises there. St. Stephen, St. Andrews, Mr. Charlotte being the biggest, and you know, sort of a even spread amongst everywhere else. I'm not hearing anything different in the building industry. I'm not hearing any news. I am still hearing that they are still crying for people. I'm still hearing that they're having trouble finding the right people to do the jobs. So there's still a labor issue. So maybe some of this is a delayed action. It's hard to tell.
Also, yeah, so our building could be out if we have more builders.
Right.
Yeah, that's why it's plateau. There's only so many. That's part of the.
We kind of hit the limit, maybe.
Yeah, that's the point.
This is as many as we can build.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's I don't have any, I can't prove that.
That makes sense.
But it's a good hypothesis, and it's entirely possible that that's what it is that's as many as we can build. Which is fine, because that's sustainable. You don't want to go too big too fast. Drain everything. Yep. I didn't really have much else in my CEO report. This last month has been busy, as you know. And I kind of covered a lot of stuff with all the councils that I visited. I didn't get to Campbell, but
We kind of go on. It's totally up to you.
if you want me there, we're going to vote on the 2025 budget next Tuesday. And that is going to be a virtual only, by Zoom only. So it's going to be a very short meeting. There's no point getting you all over here in person to do that. And the only reason we delayed that is because of the 45-day period, because September 12th was. I should have made that meeting earlier than the second Thursday or whatever.
3 days too late.
Yes. So, I am hearing around the province, just so everybody knows that even though I know that this year's budget seemed like a bit of a struggle, we were no different than any other service commission in this province. And in fact, others are still struggling. So
We all want to keep it lean and friendly.
well, yeah, and it's the same questions. It's the same thing. I've tuned into a couple of the other meetings, and it's the same issues coming up, and everybody's facing the same thing. So that's why.
Well, they should be saying the same thing. It's right there in front of your face. They're still paying the taxes and to the province. No matter how much I said, and now we're taking that money and having to take more taxpayers' money to feed the same budget in our own.
Yeah.
And that money's still going, we don't know where. So why wouldn't you ask the question?
Yep.
It's a valid question.
And next year that gets worse. So it's another 20%. So there is a set goes up again. And I think next year's the last year or the second last year where your conditional grants get to 0. So they've been taking 20% a year. So I think last year might be the last 20% of it. However, new government, I've already asked them, I said, you need to fix this before the next budget season. This is not sustainable. We'll see. I mean, the new government's got a lot of work ahead of it too, so I don't know where to land, but this one's important. And certainly UNB, AFA, and B are taking it serious. And yeah, I think we need to keep up the pressure.
Well, like I said, we're double taxing, the way we're set up, not we personally, we're taxing them because we're all mandated to do it, not because we want to. And then they're keeping they're keeping.
We're getting the money,
And there's that, yeah.
more or less.
Yeah. So that's, there is that meeting is real, by the way.
It's not a pretend meeting.
No.
Okay,
So,
I'll pack my suitcase.
you wanna go?
I'm gonna go.
Where?
Hamilton.
And also not, oh, that's a long run.
Programming it, it's about, I feel like it's 7 head before I get on ferry, just so I can say I've been to the southernmost, to the northernmost.
I towed a 26-foot boat home from Hamilton, that's where we got it. The long, oh, shoot, what is that? Yeah, that's what I thought.
And that's with UMND.
UNB, AFA, MB, it's all the RSC CEOs and all the RSC chairs.
November 15th, I think.
November 15th. And it's like 10 AM to 4 PM.
Which is the day after our committee of the whole meeting, Thursday night.
Yes, it is.
So if I go, I'm probably not going to be here, because I don't think you can do St. Stephen King.
Yeah, I know. It's,
So you'll be there that night,
Yeah. 10 o'clock.
you'll be zooming in them.
You're in charge, so I'm telling you.
No, these guys are.
You're steering the road.
Well, that was a short meeting though, isn't it? Is that the short meeting?
Come and drive all night, that's what I do.
How many hours do you?
I don't know.
Oh, the one she's talking about.
Oh, up to Hamilton?
That's not the one we all zoom in on.
Get out of here at 6. You
Be
get
there by 11 o'clock.
by 11 o'clock. Just as long as you don't get to hear you.
November 15th, going to northern New Brunswick.
That's why you guys are in charge of my travel plans.
Maybe 7 hours of the snooze.
Hey, don't they have an airport?
Charlotte.
Yeah.
But that's, yeah, you got an airport, so
I
you just
do.
fly up.
Couldn't you twist your ankle and get that medevac, take you to Campbellton Hospital?
Yeah, I don't think that's on their route, but
Probably shouldn't say that on TV, should I?
That wouldn't take.
He's only telling
10 minutes to get there.
That's not.
How long would that take them to fly? That would take no time to fly like that.
I will be by buying a personal helicopter.
all
That'd be a
right,
little slow.
so that will be on the 15th. We'll report back after that. I'm the chair of the meeting. I'll probably be somewhere to zoom in and we'll go from there. I think that wraps that up, and then you guys can make fun of me after we're off air, because I can tell it's still coming. Is there anything else? Before we move on? Okay, so the upcoming meeting, we have a special board meeting, the Howard mentioned, Tuesday night, 6 PM for full only, and that will just be the budget vote. And then the next committee of the whole meeting is what we were just talking about, November 14th at 6 PM here. And then our next board meeting is November 28th at 6 PM. Q&A with the public,
Financials.
what now?
Yeah, financial.
Financial report.
Oh, sorry,
Do you wanna hear about that?
I'd love to hear about the financial, I got all the stocks in there.
Yeah, so I have the comparative income statement here. So as it works out, because it's the end of September, so it's Q1, 2, 3. Actual versus budget. It's some things are bang on, some things are always a little more because they're seasonal and we don't buy anything at, towards the end of the year, and some things are less. That's generally how it works, but right now we're sitting in a surplus situation, $371,957. There is a deficit showing for economic development, but that's only because there's 134,503 of federal funding that hasn't transferred over to income yet. That's just, it's an accounting thing. And then regional transportation has a deficit because the budget used some of the dial-right expenditure for RSSF funding calculation base, but it's a separate thing, which is 100% funded. So you will see that in the transportation that the dial-a-ride grant, which was traditionally $50,000 a year, has been increased to 75, and that was increased by Economic Social Inclusion Corporation. There were going to be strings attached to that, but then they had just in the last couple of weeks said, well, we're not going to worry about it this year. So they're going to put the full, so a little bit of a bonus we got all right, which is good. So the yeah, there's not a lot else to tell. You can see our tipping fees are up more than we budgeted for, which is good. They're not huge. It's not a huge surplus, but it's there. Plan revenue is always the same because that's exactly what we budget for. The there was one here was course of erosion looks like it's way out of whack, but it actually isn't because there was offsetting income for that. We had an extra 100,000 come in for transitional funding there. Cooperative regional planning looks huge, but that's actually the recreation cost sharing. So that again, that was part of that amendment to that motion that's going to sit in its own budget for next year. We're under budget on expenses and planning. Most of the things we are under budget on expenses only. I just want to count that economic development one, and that's only because we haven't, that's just the accounting, we haven't switched that over yet. And community development was the same, so that, again, there was a additional money that came in there. It looks like the expenses over budget, but if you match it out to the actual income and the revenue, it's the same. It's just because there was additional funding that came through. And I really wish the government would stop doing that. Because it makes it difficult. I wish I knew exactly all the money I could count on, but that's not how it works. Yeah, that's basically it. In other words, I guess we're pretty much where we could be. There's no surprises. There's nothing out of the ordinary that I need to point out other than that one accounting housekeeping.
Any questions on the financial?
I did get confirmation today from T. Saunders Doyle for next year's audit. They start that in February.
I got ahead of myself when I already read the list of meetings, so I'm not going to do that again. Now we'll move on to the public. Ken's laughing at me, I see that.
I do not have any questions.
Excellent,
I would figure.
very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks, Dan. See ya.